saying صَدُقَ وَهُوَ كَذُوبٌ. He told the truth, but he is a compulsive liar. I mean, this is the point. The evil jinn possessing anybody, they're compulsive liars. You cannot trust what they say. So if a jinn even speaks, some people will go into starting to ask them about, why they came into this person, when they came, what's life like in the world of the jinn. Now I've even read books. People have written whole books of, conversations with the jinn. This, please, believe that this is nonsense here. You cannot trust what the jinn tell you, etc. Try to relate that now as fact. They're involved in evil. As somebody who is a particularly evil person, you're not going to trust what they say. You're not going to go and ask them and then use whatever answers they give you and base any kind of Islamic practice on it.
Is it possible for good jinns to help a person in some Islamic way? Apparently the questioner still wants some clarification on that. Islamically is the stress here.
No, as I said, if it were possible for the jinns to help Muslims in an Islamic way, then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his Sahaba would have been the first to have jinns helping them. And we have no record of the jinns helping them. So anybody who comes along later, centuries later, people say, oh, he was a saint. Why? Because the jinns were helping him. No, please. No.
Somebody asked me to mention that Sister Parveen has tickets for tomorrow's event. So if some of the sisters are interested in that, please get it from Sister Parveen. Now, two related questions. Could you please let us know once more about the treatment according to the Sunnah about jinns? According to?
The Sunnah.
Sunnah?
I'm going through back to the old steps.
Yes. And can you please continue your discussion on relevant prayers to be recited that you could not finish before?
Well, how much more time do we have? I mean, actually, as I said before, the time that we had was limited, and really to go through it, I mean, I had a whole 3 pages of various du'as, etc., to be said at different points, in the mornings, in the evenings, before sleeping. But I don't think really time would permit me to go through each and every one of them. My suggestion, as I said, is to get the book Fortification of the Muslim. Those of you, I mean, it's around, it's available. It's a very good collection, and most of the du'as are there. And in terms of the prophetic methodology, to go back through it would be to go back through, a third of the lecture which I gave before.
Is it wrong or is it a sin for a Muslim to visit a non-Muslim psychiatrist? If yes, is it wrong to become a psychiatrist or to study psychology?
The basis of psychiatry and psychology is Freudian. The ideas of Freud and others are based on evolutionary ideas concerning human beings. They analyze the animals, and from animal behavior they then look at human beings and try to interpret human beings according to how animals function. Okay, so much of what they have to offer is nonsense relative to human beings. Much of it is nonsense. There is a portion of it which comes from observation, which is observation, for example, of child psychology, observing children and their behavioral patterns, etc. The times at which they exhibit certain patterns of behavior, etc. Having knowledge of that in terms of rearing children, it's useful information. Their interpretations of it, again, you have to be careful of. A Muslim psychiatrist, it's like a contradiction in terms, really. If we define psychiatry in a loose sense, where it has to do with helping people, the psyche, and correcting the problems of the psyche, etc. Perhaps we can say, as from Islamic perspective, recitation of Quran, some knowledge of people's behavioral patterns, can help in advice, counseling of others. No harm in that sense. But psychiatry, as it is known in the West, for the most part is based on principles of kufr, disbelief, and interpreting human behavior according to the behavior of animals.
Can you shed some light on the...
Before I do that, there's one example that that comes to mind, you know, of the same, the psychologists and psychiatrists, what they do. If you ask people here in the educational system, why is it that, I mean, as I knew, when I grew up here in Toronto, I went to Jarvis in town, and I went to Northview Heights in Willowdale. In both of these schools, this is junior high and high school, there we had to, all the boys had to go swimming naked. We had to go swimming naked. You weren't allowed to wear swimming trunks. Unless you had a doctor's letter, you know. Not your parents would not write something, it's not enough. A doctor's letter, show meaning that you have some kind of deformity or something, you know, you need to hide yourself, right? Otherwise, you had to go swimming naked. And the showers. Why is it they don't have separate cubicles that people can go in with the door behind, you know, shower and then get out? No, they have a big room with just shower heads, and everybody has to go in there stark naked. Girls separate, but girls all together stark naked, boys. Why? Why do they do this? From psychology and psychiatry. They say that the human, this human behavior of shyness, where people, when they're naked, they want to cover themselves, these type of things. They say that this is some kind of psychological, you know, imbalance. There's something wrong here. Something wrong in the psyche, right? They're trying to correct it. Because why? Because when you look at the animals, you know, the dogs, the cats, the monkeys are not walking around trying to cover their private parts. No, they walk around, you know, just letting it all hang out, right? So this is why they want to have this nudist beach here in Toronto. It's the same psychology. The same psychology behind the same concept. That we are animals. Why should we be shy? Shyness is a psychosis. You know, you need to be treated. So this is it's a clear example of, you know, the mentality of, you know, psychiatry and psychology. You know, this where it has led the modern society.
Can you shed some light on the dark practices of crystal ball gazers, palm readers, and fortune tellers? Do they communicate with the jinn, and if so, how?
Okay, much of fortune telling, you know, it's hoax. But there is an element amongst them, whether they do it through palm reading, you know, reading the tea leaves or whatever. There's an element amongst them that are in contact with the jinn. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ explained, Allah talks about it in the Quran, about some among the jinn that steal a listening from the heavens. They go up to the lowest heavens, and where the angels may be talking amongst themselves about things, instructions that they've been given by Allah to do on the earth, etc. They gain some information of what is going to happen in the future. They pass this on down to the fortune teller on the earth, and he is able to tell you something of the future. But the Prophet ﷺ said, it is one truth mixed with 100 lies. So what happens is that the fortune teller, you come to them, they give you a whole list of things. This is going to happen in your life, that's going to happen, so and so and so. Then you go away. What happens is that how our brain works is that these things end up in our subconscious. We don't keep it in our conscious. We're walking around waiting for these things to happen. No, it goes in our subconscious. When one of these things happens, then we think automatically, the fortune teller told me. And then you become a propagator for the fortune teller. Hey, he told me the truth. He told me, you know, he told me this is going to happen. It happened. But you forgot the 99 other things he told you which didn't happen. See, this is how our brain works. When things from the subconscious are reinforced by events in our lives, you know, then that becomes a conscious memory here. But the other things which remain in the subconscious, we forget them. So this is what they operate on. So there will be an element amongst them that will be able to tell us some information about the future. Those that tell you information about yourself, which nobody else knows. You come to them, all of a sudden they're telling you how old you are, you know, where you live, what is your profession, you know, your wife, the names of your children. You know, people you find doing that, obviously they're dealing with the jinn, you know, directly, again, through your qareen. Your qareen has all that information. If they're dealing with a particular jinn, they get that from that qareen and pass it on to the fortune teller, and they can inform you. So any form of fortune telling